Hey, let's check back in with Nvidia. It's been about a week. Last time we looked, they were trading at 471. Now all of a sudden they're at 493. So we'll look to see if that's a good time to pick this one up, especially as it continues to trend upwards. But before we do that, let's go into some news. Let's see just what's been going on with them in this past week. Then we'll pivot to the technicals and see if now's a good time to pick this up. So to start off, there were some fears apparently of maybe a chip shortage again. Uh, but their CEO Wang said that supply will substantially increase for the rest of this year and next year. We're focused on increasing our supply. We have to do that with great urgency, and we are. So doesn't seem to be too troubling today. Maybe in another quarter or two, if sales continue to, you know, go at the pace they are, maybe it'll be a concern. But I mean, coming after a period where there was inventory surplus to now all of a sudden a shortage, I don't think enough time has passed for that truly to be the case. However, yeah, for a company growing this large, that was already a pretty big company, yeah, that is kind of a concern, and it seems like no real worries at this time. We also have Google Cloud and Nvidia expanding partnership to advance AI computing, software, and services. So Google Cloud, anytime we can see these big names, that's always going to be a nice thing for probably both parties here. So Google Cloud and Nvidia announced this new AI infrastructure and software for customers to build and deploy massive models for generative AI and speed data science workloads. Mainly has to do with large language models. So we already know Google, especially cloud, lots of customers there. So to see NVIDIA come in, hopefully making that more efficient, it really should be a win-win for both parties. Uh, Not sure how much of an impact it will have, at least in terms of dollars for both companies. Doesn't go into that, but I'm sure, again, this will lead to greater efficiencies on the Google side, which would lead to more sales on the NVIDIA side. Overall, seems like a win-win. Last thing before we pivot into the technicals and just if now is a good time to pick this up, we have the Biden administration apparently blocking sales of NVIDIA AI chips to the Middle East over China fears. Uh, Not sure if this is a continuation. We've kind of known that certain Middle Eastern countries are blocked. So right here in the middle, it says sales to Iran and Syria. They're already blocked. So we already knew that. And I guess potentially sales are maybe being halted or maybe kind of curbed. So we already know that NVIDIA kind of found a workaround where I think they couldn't sell the H100, the most powerful chip, to China, but they found out that they could sell maybe the A100 chip, which would require greater sales of that product, but it's able to go under the limitations, and so they were able to make those sales. Potentially, it looks like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have both held discussions with China over the deepening AI links. Chinese researchers are believed to be heavily represented at the Saudi Research Institution, King Abdullah Universities. So there's just a concern about teamwork happening there between the two countries, mainly China here. And so a country like Saudi Arabia, which isn't on the list right now because of the close ties, they might have to limit sales, especially for the greater power chips. But we'll see. In terms of finances, it doesn't seem like that's going to be a big impact. Uh, Most of the sales do come from China, but again, it seems like they found a workaround. Uh, no mention in terms of like Middle East being like a large contributor of revenue, but of course that could build up over time. And then of course here's the mention, which I believe this snippet comes in regards to Iran and Syria, not Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. But the little piece just says during the second quarter of fiscal year 2024, the U.S. government informed us, being NVIDIA, of an additional licensing requirement for a subset of A100 and H100 products destined to certain customers and other regions, including some countries in the Middle East. So we'll see how that plays out. I think when that U.S. filing came out, that had to do with the Iran Syria. So we'll see how this plays out in terms of Saudi Arabia getting involved in this. But for now, I wouldn't put too much weight behind it. But again, we'll just continue watching it as it plays out. So wanted to kind of pivot into this and see how things have kind of changed, especially on the analyst side before we go into the technicals. So here we have just last time we looked at them, and this was right around earnings, I believe right before. And you can see analysts were expecting something like $11 billion. And as we know, they did way better than that. And they gave us a forward earnings of 16 billion. And so now we're seeing the analysts update their number. So here was a couple of days ago, they updated it to just below 16 billion. They updated it for the full year and also the earnings per share. And now that brings us up to today. Now they're saying it's over 16, which again, that's in line with expectations. But of course, if they're updating this, they're updating for the next quarter, the full year. Same with the earnings per share. Everything seems like in line. The analysts are definitely picking up their estimates, which I would imagine is going to pick up the price. But we'll just keep following it, see how that fluctuates. But yeah, they finally got it in line with what the CEO was saying that they're expecting. So this is kind of in line. And then down here at the bottom, this just kind of shows how we saw the company last time we looked, just a week ago when it was trading at 471. Thought it was a decent price. Wasn't like a great buy, but I wouldn't have been opposed to picking it up. We ultimately didn't pick it up. And the only reason I know that is if this would have been like highlighted purple, then that would have been like a notifier that we picked this one up, but we didn't. And I just mentioned that because, as we mentioned at the beginning, the stock price has gone up. So we're currently at 493, and we can zoom in. Last time we looked, yeah, it was right around in here. I guess it was higher because we said 471. Yeah, that was right around a resistance point. Whoops. But yeah, it's gone straight up since. If we zoom out, we have a couple like support points, couple resistance points. But overall, the main thing is this uptrend, which started back here in roughly January of this year. We were in this uptrend right after their first quarter earnings when we got that big pop, the big projection in terms of what they're planning on doing next quarter in terms of guidance. Then we saw this big move, massive move, and from around May we started this accelerated uptrend. Overall uptrend clearly still intact. It's just it took a step up, and now we're kind of trading in between the blue and the red, and that's currently where we are now. So right now at 493, it's very close to the upper limits, and this pop really just happened. I thought that little resistance at around 469 might hold up a little bit more, and in a way it did. It stopped out there a couple times, got rejected, pulled back to the green. I do remember picking it up here, and now as we continue upwards towards the top of the channel, we might just start seeing it continue to trade upward, which is nice for investors, but in that upper channel, which I'm not a big fan of, especially if we can get and catch the breaks below. But yeah, we're not even at the blue line anymore. If we were there, that would be the first time I would consider picking this up. But now that we're close to the top of the channel, I just feel like I'd wait for a better price point. So for right now, at 493, I'm still waiting for like 463 would be roughly that blue line in the middle. If it pulled back to there, that would be the first time I would look for it. But truly, I'm looking for like 424. There's a couple support points there where there was some kind of support here back in like July. And also it's the bottom of that uptrend, and that's just the ideal point. But 463, that gets us at least halfway in the uptrend. But 424 is the point I'm looking for. And then resistance, 508 would be the very top of the red line this week. Next week, it'll shift up to about 515. So it's just going to continue building up. And then we also had 469 noted. Um, it looks like we're just going to continue through, which I figured we would. But there's definitely a couple more weeks where it could kind of maybe consolidate there a little more. Don't expect it to hold up, beyond a month. If that, it might not even come back to that price anytime soon. But yeah, that pretty much wraps this up. So just like a quick recap here, we have Nvidia in red because I just don't like the price. I want it to pull back, preferably to at least 463, but ideally would be 424. But otherwise, that uptrend since January still intact. That accelerated uptrend from May. It did break for a week or two, but it's back in there, so we're going to keep that. Otherwise, the plan is still to buy the dips on this. So if it dips below, preferably to like 420s, 430s, that would be great, but not hold my breath at this time. But that's it. So if you have any comments, want to ask any questions, feel free to do that. Otherwise, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.